The Friday afternoon ahead of the 20th anniversary of 9/11 is an odd time for a big political announcement, but Colorado Republicans' candidate for governor kind of whoops-a-daisied her campaign into public view today. Colorado's extra vaccines and the ethical debate over whether to donate them abroad or use them for boosters here. And 20 years ago, this man helped Coloradans stranded on 9/11 get home. He's gone now, and his daughter wants nothing more than to connect with the strangers her father helped on that day. Can you help? That's what Next's all about. Fridays are when politicians typically bury bad news they would prefer that you not see. Odd time to launch a campaign for governor of Colorado, but the biggest named Republican considering a run for governor had her campaign kind of plop into public view today. That probably was not CU Regent Heidi Ganahl's plan. Politics guy Marshall Zelling's along now with this. We usually call this a Friday afternoon news dump, but I guess this is what, like a campaign dump?
Well, I was going to tell a story about how I used to go to all week I've been going to the Secretary of State's website to look for a candidate affidavit that says that Republican Heidi Ganahl is going to run for governor, except today it didn't exist until 2 minutes ago when I just found it. Before, it was simply a candidate committee that was formed called Heidi for Governor that showed up on the website that kind of said the surprise is gone, but this candidate affidavit really ruins the surprise now that there is a Republican Heidi Ganahl running for governor in Colorado.
At the core of what we are.
There is no pressure for Republican CU Regent Heidi Ganahl. She's only the last elected statewide Republican in Colorado, and she knew that statistic the day after the November 2020 election.
A statewide Republican race today, the morning after what happened last night, seems really tough.
That was the day after John Hickenlooper became Colorado's second Democratic senator. The other statewide elected offices are also held by Democrats. Attorney General, Secretary of State, the other CU regent who was elected statewide, and the governor, the job Ganahl will announce she's running for on Tuesday. But today, the team responsible for creating her candidate committee for fundraising created it, making it public. Heidi for Governor is the committee formed to raise funds and support for Republican Heidi Ganahl to be the governor of Colorado. There were other clues she was running even before this filing, like her Twitter account, which has far fewer tweets and likes than a year ago. The Wayback Machine, which archives the web, shows Ganahl's Twitter account 16 months ago, with 2,000 tweets, many more likes, and nearly 4,500 accounts that she followed. Those tweets and likes started disappearing until we get to today. Her account has 187 tweets, nearly half the likes from before, and she follows just 116 accounts. The oldest tweet on her account is from this past May, sharing a video of a dog helping a guy work on a truck. Gone are a bunch of other tweets. We can't see what she said in this one, but the reply says any woman who supports Trump is not helping any women ever. She's also purged her support of CU football from last year and support of former Republican Senator Cory Gardner.
Just because the support of CU football is gone, I still think the CU Regent supports CU football. I will point out, when she won her statewide race in 2016, she won by 2 points, 56,000 votes. Since then, we've had, last year we saw that President Biden won by 13 points and John Hickenlooper won by 9 points. That's a big hill to climb over.
That is. So in terms of where she is on the political spectrum, she was not immediately pro-Trump, but eventually got on the Trump train and was very pro-Trump. But she's going to want to talk about, I assume, like business, public safety, that kind of thing, and not the social stuff.
We can't see certain tweets where she also supported Lauren Boebert at some point, Congresswoman Boebert. But yes, business, she started Camp Bow Wow, women in public office. There will be a lot that we'll learn about Tuesday at an announcement that is probably ruined now since she put her candidate affidavit filed with the Secretary of State's office.
Marshall, appreciate that. Also appreciate that I combed over my bald spot before we used this camera shot.
I did not.
This is a global pandemic that we are in right now. That's something worth considering as we consider in Colorado whether our extra vaccine doses here are best used as booster shots for our neighbors or first shots for people in other countries. Anusha Roy examines the ethics and the logistics considered by the governor.
Over a 3-week period earlier this summer, Colorado donated nearly 200,000 doses of Moderna and more than 100,000 doses of Pfizer to a federal pool, which were then redistributed across the country. Doses the state said were allocated to Colorado, but they didn't need at the time. And now that states order what they need when they need it, they don't expect a lot of leftovers in Colorado. And it's the surplus supply across the country that feds are tapping into to deliver more than 127 million doses so far to 88 countries and purchased more for the same reason, with enough saved for Americans, including booster shots.
But I can tell you from our perspective, we have enough doses.
But ethically, is the U.S. doing enough when the World Health Organization said 80% of doses have gone to richer countries so far, leaving other countries behind?
Global pandemic ethics would suggest that we should really try and get everybody in the world vaccinated. And there's benefits to us for that, in people here in the United States. Right. We know that a lot of the variants come from countries where vaccination rates are a lot lower.
Dr. Anuj Mehta worked with the state to roll out vaccines and said it's not just about delivering vaccines, it's about making sure other countries are ready for them.
A lot of times if we were to ship vaccine to some countries, it might just sit on loading docks and expire if they don't have the public health infrastructure.
If we have the vaccine here and it's offered to us with a solid scientific base, we need to accept it.
Professor Ricardo Gonzalez Fisher is with MSU Denver and said helping other countries while protecting people here needs to happen at the same time.
This is my first pandemic.
He reflected living in Mexico during the H1N1 flu outbreak more than a decade ago.
We were expecting to get vaccines wherever they came from because people needed. So society have not learned as much as we should in taking care of each other.
So Dr. Mehta, who you heard from, who also works in the ICU, said it makes sense to give people boosters who are at higher risk for COVID. But when it comes to the general public, he said that decision is really just going to be relying on good science and paying attention to timing. He said since being fully vaccinated still provides a lot of protection. Ultimately, Kyle, all of those decisions, it's going to be up to the FDA and the CDC.
I hear people say, I'd like the dose to go someplace else, but wishing does not make it so. It's interesting to get into that issue. Thank you, Anusha. The question so many of us default to when we discuss September 11th, 2001 is to ask somebody, where were you? So let me ask, were you in the back of a van being driven by a stranger cross country to Denver? Because when flights were grounded nationwide, a flight to Denver landed in Omaha, Nebraska. There, a man named Emilio Martinez rented a vehicle so he could get home. He got the largest vehicle he could find and he packed it with strangers headed to Colorado. 20 years later, his daughter Mercedes, who misses the father that she lost a few years ago, just wants to connect with those strangers her dad helped on 9/11.
My name is Mercedes Martinez. My dad, his name is Emilio Martinez. He passed away in 2016 from a brain tumor, glioblastoma, but he was Colorado through and through. Well, my mom and I were talking last night about 9/11 and how the 20th anniversary was coming up, and she brought up something that we have talked about for years that my dad did. He was on a business trip in Ohio and was flying back to Denver that morning of 9/11, 2001. And as the plane was in the air, the pilot came on and said that they were being grounded, so they would be landing in Omaha instead of Denver. That immediately had a lot of people panicking. How am I going to get to Denver? What's going on? Everybody was very scared. And we laughed because the first thing my dad did was turn on his cell phone, even though you weren't supposed to turn them on. And as soon as he got a signal, his first call was to a rental car agency, not to family, but he wanted to rent the biggest van possible. He went to passenger pickup and parked it. And then he went back inside the Omaha airport. Apparently there was a big cardboard box next to a trash can. So he ripped off half of it, asked for a Sharpie, and wrote "Going to Denver" on it. And he just stood there next to the trash can holding this sign. People were walking by, walking up to the ticketing agents, trying to find a way to get home. No one knew what was going on. But then they started seeing this sign, and anyone that was going to Denver was stopping. And they said, "I'm going to Denver." And he said, "You're in. We're taking this van." And when they got to Denver, instead of just dropping everyone at a common place, he made sure that everyone got to their home. He never really told me much about the strangers other than the fact that They spent the whole ride talking about their families. He wanted to know about their stories. He said, this is something that we'll probably remember for a long time. So he really wanted to get to know them. I really want to find these people. My dad's passed away 5 years ago, and we miss him more than anything in this world. But we would really like to know more about that day and those 7 people. I know that's something my dad would want to do. And just one small thing like that, 20 years later, I'm hoping there's someone out there that thinks of him every 9/11. He would be embarrassed, but he, I think, be really grateful.
Mercedes told us that her dad kept in touch with the people from the van for years, but eventually those connections faded away. If you would like to reconnect with the family, reach out to us here. We'll put you in touch. Hearing people describe how America reacted to 9/11 feels uncomfortable, simplistic, because individual Americans responded in every way imaginable. A few Americans stormed a cockpit to stop the terrorists who'd seized their plane. Other Americans engaged in Islamophobic hate crimes. Some of my college classmates explained why America deserved 9/11. Some of my former high school classmates enlisted to fight Al-Qaeda. And then there were all of those Americans like Emilio Martinez who did what they could to help. Emilio driving that van load of stranded Coloradans across the country when their plane was grounded partway here. We don't need to look back over these 20 years and pretend that America had a singular, unified reaction to 9/11 or to ignore some of the destructive choices made in the aftermath of 9/11. We can choose to remember the individual Americans, those who lost their lives, those who stepped forward bravely, and those who just offered the simple kindness of Emilio Martinez. You have all proven this week that you don't just believe in second chances, you will help make them possible. Your Word of Thanks campaign has raised $19,000 and counting for the Second Chance Center, the nonprofit that works with Coloradans leaving prison to help them succeed and stay out of trouble. Almost 1 in 2 people leaving prison in Colorado is going to go back. That's what's called the recidivism rate. The recidivism rate for Coloradans in the Second Chance Center's programs, it's 10%. What they do is proven to work. The Second Chance Center's peer housing, having folks live together, it helps formerly incarcerated people build a stable foundation, helps them find jobs, stay sober, treat mental health issues, and reconnect with their families. When they avoid reoffending and returning to prison, that is good for everybody in our community. Text thanks to 303-871-1491 to join me and a bunch of Next viewers in adding to the $19,000 raised so far to help the Second Chance Center expand its proven work that changes lives. The plan for enforcing the president's new vaccine mandate is missing a few things. All of the details, basically. The governor says he's not worried.
But this is a very normal way of doing things, Marshall.
Yeah, Marshall. Also, it's hot. Hot enough to break records and inspire poetry. Next. The state of Colorado will not be in charge of enforcing President Biden's vaccine or weekly testing mandate for employees. Democratic Governor Jared Polis said today he's more focused on enforcing Colorado's rules.
If you're talking about President Biden's announcement, we do not enforce that. We have developed the implementation for our state workers to enforce it, just as many employers have.
The Federal Department of Labor is developing those guidelines. The governor said he's waiting to see those so that then the state of Colorado can give feedback to the feds.
I think these are things that we expect to get. I mean, this is a very normal way of announcing things. They announced the 6 broad steps, what's happening. They even said in there's going to be rulemaking, there'll be the policies developed. That's actually good because it's a chance to provide input during this process, other states to provide input. I fully expect we'll get all these answers and highlight, the unique needs of Colorado in that process.
The mandate averse, Governor Polis says, stay tuned for details on that. It is now meteorological fall. I tell you, on a day when Denver set a record at 99 degrees. Too hot for me to want to mow the lawn, but not to keep meteorologist and wordsmith Corey Reppenhagen from his fine craft.
Corey Reppenhagen is on the weather beat.
September burning, piercing sun rays like a thorn, record misery.
That was Corey Reppenhagen on the Weather Beat.
Another hot, hazy day, second day in a row with a record high temperature. Today, 99. We should be in the low 80s, but we had triple-digit highs in eastern Colorado, western Nebraska, and Kansas. But the good news is a lot of the smoke is going north and east. Improved air quality as a weak front comes in that will bring not only cooler weather, but maybe some beneficial rain showers as we move into Saturday afternoon and evening. For the most part, it's all high clouds over the next 24 to 36 hours, but things change heading into the weekend. Our low tonight at 62 with partly cloudy skies. Tomorrow's high 92. That's more like it. We have mid-80s for the weekend, and check out Tuesday, rain with a high of 73.
It's your Friday good news. Elevated.
This is a great story. This isn't a good news story. This is a great news story.
The 263rd edition of Good News on ice. Next. You have shared your good news with us every Friday for more than 260 Fridays on Next. And today's good news comes courtesy of a family you would not think would have much good news to offer these days. Plus the hockey family, helping them carry their burden for a time today.
Today's a really special day.
It is always good to be on the ice or around the ice.
Oh, through his legs even! And today out on the ice, every player on the ice has overcome some sort of traumatic injury or illness. And
majority of it is cancer.
Every one of those people has an amazing story. And
my husband is Van Stone, number 23. And December 21st of 2018, he misstepped on our stairs in the afternoon and had a traumatic brain injury, which I had no idea what a traumatic brain injury was.
Let's make a little noise for this guy, huh? One of the things he hasn't been able to do is play hockey, and we like to make things happen, and today Van's going to take the ice.
Yeah! So it's my understanding they pulled some of the survivors together to play hockey just so Van can get the feel of going back on the ice and being part of a team again. To get back one of the great loves of his life is so fantastic.
How cool is that, everybody?
He is smiling from ear to ear. It's just amazing.
How do you like that, my man?
I feel amazing. I feel like you told me 2.5 years ago when we almost lost him, didn't know if he was going to live or die, and now he's out on the ice. It's amazing. Woo! He scored!
Good news indeed. CU Boulder's new Ralphie 6 is a healthy scratch for this weekend's big game at Mile High. CU's playing Texas A&M in Denver tomorrow, but we've learned Ralphie will not be running. CU says she did a great job in the debut last week, but they're so focused on training her to run at Folsom that taking her to Mile High might be like, what? Where am I? Where do I go? Ralphie 6 will run at home next Saturday when the Minnesota Golden Gophers come to Boulder. You get the final word in your feedback, and we'll leave you with a quiet moment for your own reflection at the 9/11 Memorial in Broomfield. Next. Mary called the newsroom during the broadcast tonight, said she's 89, traveling soon for a wedding, and would love a booster shot. Mary, I'll call you after the show to walk you through this, but for anybody else wondering, call your doctor and ask the direct question, and ask pharmacies in your area as well. You're going to have to be persistent. We leave you tonight with a moment of reflection at the 9/11 Memorial in Broomfield.